Bye. Our trip in Queen's Queen's University at Canada, and okay, we will go ahead since we are a bit late.
Cool. Thank you. I guess the microphone's working. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dai Lin, and I'm currently a PhD student in Queen's University in Canada. And today I'm going to present a paper, an empirical study of early access games on a Steam platform. This is a journal's first presentation, and the paper has already been published in the journal Empirical Software Engineering. And the paper is co-authored with Dr. Bismer and also Professor Hassan. So, as we all know, that the gaming industry is currently going through a shift from the traditional offline distribution, such as retail stores, to online distribution, such as PlayStation Network, the Steam platform, and also the Xbox Live. However, this is not just a shift of the distribution mechanism. It also enables the industry to shift from a traditional software development lifecycle to a faster and more iterative software development lifecycle. And my research focuses on the part of the online distribution and how it impacts the game development. And we have some other publications around the topic, including a paper of Urge Update, which was published in 2016, and also another recent paper about user reviews of games. But today we're going to talk about the early access one. And for the full publication, you can find that on our lab's website, as well as my own personal website for more information. So what is early access model? If we take a step back and look at the public beta release strategy, we'll see that this strategy has been applied in software engineering for a long period of time. It can be traced back as early as 1984, when IBM firstly used a Pioneer Edition in their software World Vision. And recently, in 2015, Microsoft Office also applied a program called Office Insider, which allows the enrolled users to receive a very early version of the Office before it's released and provides early feedback to the developers. The model has also been applied for game industry. For example, in 2009, there's a very famous game called Minecraft, which was released as a public beta version. And the Minecraft game has gained a tremendous success, which allows the developer to quit his job and work on a game full-time. In light of the success for games such as Minecraft, in 2013, the Steam platform, which is currently the dominant PC gaming distribution platform, released a new model called Early Access Model. To compare the Early Access Model on Steam platform with the normal games on the Steam platform, so if you want to release a game on Steam platform, traditionally, you just finish the whole development process, and then you release it as a full title, and then the users can purchase it and use it, and provide reviews and stuff. But for early access games, in the early development stage, the developers will prepare a playable version, and then they will release it on the early access channel, which allows users to purchase the game and play it while it's developed, and also provide early feedback. And also developers can update the game as much as they want until they feel like the game is ready for full release, and then release the game as a full title on the Steam platform. Steam claims that this is the way the game should be developed. And as a developer, you can not only get earlier connection to the community that you're targeting, but also you can collect a lot of feedback and bug reports. And as a gamer, if you're playing early access games, you can be one of the first people to play the game, as well as get involved and get your voice heard by the developers when still under development. The mechanism has become very popular through some very popular titles. For example, the successful title of DayZ game. It receives 400,000 sales in the first week of release, and also it still ranks the top 50 games for the number of players nowadays. And also there's another recent example called the PlayerUnknown's Battleground, which I think a lot of you are very familiar with. It has 1 million simultaneous players, and it's called the global gaming phenomenon. However, there are always two sides to the story. There are also very famous failure of the model. For example, for the game Space-Based DF9. This game, after it's fully released on a Steam platform, it received 77% of negative reviews, directly causing the studio to lay off 12 employees, including the team lead of the game. And the failure has triggered a heated debate in the gaming community about whether this model is how good that Steam described it to be. And people find that there's only 1/4 of the game has been finished, and a large quantity has been abandoned or become inactive. People are starting to call it a ticking time bomb or even a development hell. So in order to understand how this model is actually performing and how developers can best utilize this model, we conducted an empirical study of all the 1,182 early access games available on the Steam platform. We collected for more than 1.5 million user reviews, more than 16,000 release notes, more than 800,000 forum posts, and also the sales information for each of the studied games. And with this information, we conducted research about 3 questions. The first one is what is the characteristic of the early access model? The second one, how are developers and gamers using this model? How are they interacting with the Steam platform? And the last one is acknowledging that the game is still under development and is not perfect. How tolerant are players towards the quality of the game? So for all these games that we collected, we see that among all the games on the Steam platform, there are 15% of the game that has been used or is currently using the early access model. And this is a Pac-Man. And around this 15%, one third of them has finished their early access stage and be released as a full title, while 2/3 of them are still under development in the early access stage. And we look at the ratio of the early access games released in each month versus the non-early access games, we'll see a very clear trend of growth during the past 3 years. This is further confirmed by the number of games released. We can see that in 2013 there are 64 games released as early access games, while in 2015 the number becomes 434. This is an almost 600% growth. Even comparing to the 300% growth of the Steam platform itself, it almost doubled the growth. However, there are always a downside of the story. If we break the number down to the games that are still using early access model and the number of games that has already finished their development, we will see that even for the first year of the model become available, only 50%, only half of them has finished their development. You might think that maybe it's because that's how long the development of early access game takes. Unfortunately, that's not the case. When we look at the typical length to develop an early access game, games usually spend less than a year in the early access stage. And we are with the longest record kept by the game Prison Architect, which spent 2.5 years in the early access stage.
Can I ask, did they actually release the final version of what they just developed?
So for this study, for this figure, all the games are former early access games. So they have finished their early access stage and becomes a fully available game on Steam platform. And then we see how long they spent on a period. And we further look into the games that spent a very long time in the early access stage to understand why they are spending that long time. And we conclude the following reasons. The first one is the lack of developers or lack of money to hire more developers. The second one is lack of necessary skills to develop a game, such as UI art. The third one is the difficulty to estimate the full budget of developing the game. And lastly, we also see the cases where developers are simply perfectionism and they want to polish the game till it's perfect before it's released. And we can see that there's a lot of reasons related to money, which leads us to wonder maybe the developers of early access model are usually poor or doesn't have a lot of budget. Yeah, actually, indeed, that's the case. Because if we look at early access games, we see that 88% of them are labeled by their developers as indie games. Comparing to the 56% for non-early access games, this is a large number. And we further look at how many games has these developers developed. We see that the people who use the model generally have a very low number of games on Steam platform. And a studio with a tremendously large number of games usually don't use it at all. So secondly, we look at how the developers and gamers are interacting with the platform to see how is the model used. And we look at the game updates of developers and also the reviews and discussion forums from players. And we see that 63% of the early access games update more frequently in their early access stage. So take an example of game Fight the Dragon. We'll see that after the release, as a full game, the update frequency slows down a lot. We can also see a very interesting trend that within the initial release as a full title on the Steam platform, it actually updates way more frequently, even more frequently than early access stage. And we think it can be explained by the fact that it's facing a larger audience right now after it's fully released, which also indicates that the number 63% might be lower in reality because by the time we collect the data, there are a large number of games that just being released as full title on the Steam platform. If you look at the player side of the story, we'll see that they are actually even significantly highly active on the discussion forum. They post a lot of concrete issues like bug reports or feature requests. On the other hand, they also tend to post less reviews, which is surprising for us because we thought that review is traditionally considered a major way of communication between players and developers should be very active as well. This might indicate that players are acknowledged that the game is still under development and they try to hold their final opinion towards the game till it's fully released. And the phenomenon of this thing is a double-edged sword. On the good side, the high activity on the discussion forum and the low activity on the review posting means that the developer of early access game has a lower probability of receiving negative reviews. And they can receive more concrete issues like bug reports or feature requests from the discussion forum. However, since the discussion forum posts are always about concrete issues, it will be hard for them to quantify overall how players are feeling about their game. So lastly, we're looking into the tolerance of players towards the quality of early access games. We're trying to see if you know that the game is not perfect, would you be more tolerant? And we look at the update frequency of developers and the reviews of players. We see that indeed that's the case. Although the number of reviews you will receive in early access stage is lower, you're actually receiving a way more positive review. For 88% of the early access games, during their early access stage, they have a significantly higher positive review rate. What is even better is that the percentage of positive reviews is not correlated with either the length or the update frequency that you spend on early access stage, meaning that early access developers can spend as long as they like and update as frequently as they like during the early access stage. So that's back to the original question that we raised. Is early access model the way the game should be made, as mentioned by Steam platform? Actually, unfortunately, this is not a yes or no answer. We said it depends. On the pro side, using the early access model means that you will receive a higher positive review rate. This is very useful to build up a positive reputation when you have a very small budget, especially considering that the majority of developers using this model is small developer team or small studios. Also, you will receive a large amount of concrete feedback from the discussion forum. However, if we look at the downside of the model, we'll see that the model doesn't give you more number of reviews, meaning that owners are less tend to post reviews to the game. Also, since the discussion forum post is very active, but the review rate is low, it will be hard for developers to quantify how are players in general feeling about the game. And lastly, we also examine some of the failure of the game and conclude that it's very risky to use the model as your major funding source if you are an early access game developer. So we firstly look at the popularity and see that the early access model is gaining its popularity throughout the years. And we see that the early access games are receiving a higher discussion activity and a lower review activity, which is a double-edged sword. But fortunately, if you're using the model, you're getting way more positive reviews during the stage. And lastly, for developers, when you are considering whether or not to use this model, you should keep these pros and cons in mind and make your own decision. And there are more details about this research in the journal paper, and I welcome everyone to read the publication to see more interesting findings. And thank you for your attention. My name is Dai Ling, and I'm about to be on job market, and I will be happy to answer every question. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we have, some minutes for...
Have you considered the difference between free early access and paid early access in your study?
So towards which part of the... Just in general?
Yeah, in general, if you see, if this data would be different, I just wonder if the data, if the rate of reviews and the positive and the quality of reviews would be different for people who got a free version of an early access game or someone that had to pay a bit to get the early access version?
Okay, so actually, the nature of early access model is that the developers can adjust the price of the game at any time point that they want. So, for whether the game is free or not, we try to group them to 3 different kinds. For example, the first kind is that they are free throughout the lifetime before they are released as full title and within the early stage. And also the second type is that they increase the price. For example, they used to be very cheap during the early stage, and then they become pricey after the full release. But there is also some games that decrease the price, so they charge more for players to play the game in early version. So this is the number that we concluded, and we think that it might indicate that the developers who provides a lower price during the early access stage is actually trying to get more feedback, while the developers who is charging more during the stage is trying to raise money for development, which is actually risky. And we actually have some follow-up study in a user review paper, which grouped the game into early access, non-early access, free-to-play, non-free-to-play, and to investigate more about the user reviews, how would that impact. And if you're interested, you can check out that paper as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, congratulations for your presentation.
Thank you.
It was really good. I just have a question. You mentioned that these people will receive more positive reviews.
Yeah, they tend to receive a higher possibility rate.
Mm-hmm. Well, my question is that this is related to how much they sell after this period of early stage, or is just people that give very good review but they never pay? They are mean customers. Did you check on that?
Sorry, you mean if the reviewers are actually the players of the game, or?
No, I mean that, okay, you receive more positive reviews, but this amount of positive reviews translate to more sales or more money at the end for the developer, or you can check it?
Oh, whether the positive review rate actually leads to more sales, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we didn't directly compare the number of sales with the positive review rate, but as we see from a lot of previous study, we see that a positive review tend to lead to more downloads in like mobile app studies and other stuff. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, the positive review rate, just like other app store, is the metric that is shown on a store page of games as a suggestion for future customers whether they should purchase the game or not. So having a higher percentage of positive reviews, we think it would be helpful for the future market of the game.
Yeah, I do agree with you. My point was that maybe these people only use it when it's free. When it's a full release and they have to pay, maybe they change to another game. So that's what the thing that I wanted to understand. But yeah, okay. I agree with you that you have more positive reviews, you are more popular and more probable to be selected by a new customer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we move to next one. We don't have more time for. Well, while they are changing, go ahead.
Hi, I have 2 questions actually.
Oh, sorry.
One question is that have you considered filtering the target user for which will be given the early access mode?
Sorry?
Have you ever considered filtering the users, the junior users, senior users, or like the silver golden users of which will be given the early access mode? And the second question would be that so what scope do you think, have you ever determined the scope of the early access mode? Should we give the small user group or the large medium user group?
Yeah, so we didn't really group the users because it's actually, in my opinion, it's hard to say whether a user is a new user or a more experienced user, especially considering that there's a lot of different genres of games. And a user might be very experienced in shooting game genre, but very new to casual game. And so I feel like it's hard to say, and especially for early access games, it's across all the genres, so it's hard to say whether a user is experienced in or not towards the early access game. But it will be interesting to see, for sure. And also for the second question,
Sorry, time.
Okay, we can discuss more.
We can exactly remember that you have at the end of we have a 10 minutes thing. Okay.